the history of hospitality industry, in a sense synonymous with some of us, starts off from the 60s. So I joined in the 70s. So 60s, 70s, 80s, perhaps was a decade where hospitality industry in India was actually pretty much organized only at the top end. That means the luxury segment. Anyone who actually, there were already the iconic hotels like the Oberoi in Kolkata, the Taj, and a whole lot of the Great Eastern Hotel, and the West End in Bangalore. So, but they were all just standalone iconic hotels. But the real professionalism, the way in which the industry, from a single standalone hotels, it actually necessarily became an industry was probably in the 70s, when many, the three leading brands of the group actually started seriously taking this as serious business, hotel business, when the tourism actually was the main source of business for the industry. Now, 70s, 80s, 90s was perhaps okay. Most of the major brands dominated the national scene because there was no competition. There was it was a closed economy. But 92, everything changed. Even for the next 8 years, till the new millennium, the hotel industry always took umbrage in the fact that, okay, the FDI is not coming into the hospitality industry, it's all happening in the automobile industry, it's all happening in various other sectors, not in the industry, and it didn't happen. So they had this breathing time for 8 years. And certainly those were the years when it transformed the industry in India, because the major brands took notice and started actually restructuring their entire brand's architecture. I can say that for my own group, the Taj Group, the Oberois, the ITC, all the brands in India, literally in a sense, started getting ready and rebranding their architecture in preparation for the battle ahead with the foreign invaders, as so to say. And then the new millennium changed the entire scene. What has happened is, for instance, they say the first trillion, you would have read recently that India has become a 2 trillion economy. The first trillion took about 60 years. And the last trillion, the second trillion, took us only 7 years. So that's the way the economy is growing. So what is it in stock for all of us? So what really has happened is, in India, the top line, the luxury and the premium to some extent was actually filled in with a lot of brands, but the rest of the space is largely undefined. There's a huge vacuum. And that's what's happening in the last maybe 10 years, where the market segments are being redefined, the brands are being defined very clearly, and there is going to be clear differentiation and segregation between various market segments, product segments, and brand segments. And today, in a sense, I would say that the industry has reached a certain level of maturity, where the market segments and the product segments and the brand segments have been very clearly defined as luxury, premium, then you have the mid-market, the economy, and the budget. So today, I was very fortunate, like of course Ajay himself, he's also worked in the luxury before he went into the different segments, that we had this exposure. The fundamentals actually are very strong when it comes to when you start working in the luxury segment. Because that's true hoteliering. Quintessentially, that is where hotel management business really happens. Right? You don't go wrong in your basics. Attention to details, full knowledge of the food and beverage, overall business, marketing, sales. But then with all that, you understand that there is so much space and there's so much more to learn when you get into the mid-market, economy, and budget hotels. The thinnest margin in the entire segment is in the budget hotels. And that's, for me, the experience I've had with the brand that I worked the last, the budget hotel segment, the Ginger, was perhaps the most challenging. Because that was actually where you go wrong once, and then, straight away it's actually going down as either negative profit. So having said that, I just want to say, therefore, today's focus is actually on how do we face the challenges, the huge potential that mid-market, economy, and the budget hotels offer to the Indian operators, the current business, all of you who are already in the business, and those of you who are actually planning to get into the to hotel business. May I have the slides, please? Yeah. Okay, so I'll start off. We have very limited time, so therefore I'll open up this whole presentation, just about 7 slides on franchising and managing. But I'll start with what's the emerging scenario. So just to context it. See, entry of branded products in direct competition with family-run, single local brands. I think a lot of you actually here are running businesses, maybe second generation, third generation, or even first generation of hotel business. But again, you're all running standalone, local, regional brand business. Before I go to the next point, I just want to say, one of the most revealing things that I learned getting into the brand that I managed, the budget brand, the Ginger brand, was when somebody told me that, there's a brand called Ho-Min in China. That Ho-Min brand started after the Ginger, and it has, can you guess how many hotels in China? 2,500 hotels in 345 locations in about 9 years. So how did they happen? How did they manage there in China? Why is it that we can't manage it here in India? Actually, if you look at it in terms of unbranded and branded hotels in India, there are more than 2,000 hotels. So that's the opportunity and that's the potential. Is there an opportunity for the convergence between family-run hotels to branded products? Next, with the expected economic growth fueling demand for affordable, that's more important. We are very, when we say value perception, it's extremely important. Safety has become now a byword, a buzzword in terms of brand perception. When you actually see, especially among the single lady travelers, they're always looking for hotels which are branded, which are familiar, which are known for propagating safety as their priority. Then hygiene, another very, very important factor in India. They're looking for very hygienic conditions in the guest room, the bathrooms, and also in the dining areas and space like that. And then efficiency, more than warmth, care, and saying sorry, sir. I don't think anybody, the next generation is not going to accept this word, sorry, sir. They want things to function. They want the hotels to be efficient. Then easy to access. They're very time poor, so they want everything to happen through their mobile phones. They have just 3, 4 steps and they should get into the entire process. Then, downtown. You see, they also are talking about locations. Today transport is a huge challenge in metros and towns, so they want to have walking distance within a certain radius or parameter of where their offices are. So downtown, uptown locations are extremely important for the success of a hotel. In the metros, the other thing is, metros like Delhi, Bombay still has a huge scope for budget hotels and mid-market hotels and economy hotels, just as tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 hotels. So that's next. In terms of the consumer, India perhaps is the only country in the world which has, as you know, the democratic dividend. And what does it mean to us, to the industry? It's a huge challenge. We have the largest number of new, first-time, aspirational consumers waiting with high exposure. Even if they've not gone abroad, they've seen it all through the net, through the various visuals. What to expect from the hotel that they're booking in? So they are the Gen X, they're the Gen Y. And the baby boomers are us, who are already have, in a sense, we are now, there are a lot of them getting into the 50s and 60s, but they are well-traveled, earned a lot of money, there's a lot of dispensable income. And we are not the traditional thing, the hugely liberal-minded attitude people who want to spend the money and enjoy life. So you see, you have these 3, 4 segments in India, which is an ideal mix for the hotel industry. And what do they want? They are dispensable income, and they want, to go to do the short getaways and holidays and quality time. What really is happening in India, you can see that there are. One of my old-time colleagues, Matthew, told me this year, there are more than 14 weekends, long weekends. Okay, they're already planned. Those long weekends are already booked in far in excess of the demand, So there is obviously a lot of shortage of rooms during the peak seasons. Many of the weekends or many of the holiday times, you just don't get a room at all. what does it clearly indicate? That in case there's an inadequate capacity in the sector. Yeah. Next is transaction. Yes, it comes to the partner versus the brands. What are the kind of transactions that are gaining trend? From my own experience, I can tell you this fixed lease is totally out. You know, it doesn't make any sense for the management companies to get into any fixed leases because that creates a lot of strain. Therefore, there are flexi leases, there are revenue share models is very popular now, and pure management contracts and franchises. Franchises, frankly, in India has not taken shape. We would rather call that as manchises. I'll just quickly go through the slides. Okay, the time is limited. Why is it not going forward? It's not going forward. Yeah. Okay, just quickly go through it. There is, we can always discuss after the session is over. But franchise application, this is how a branded hotel company looks at a franchisee. You know, a franchisor looking at a franchisee application form, hotel evaluation templates, franchise processes, so purpose, features, status. And this is an important slide. So you look at the design spec manual, then you look at the procurement material manual. So these are all the kind of assets or IPs that the brand brings in. Operation manuals. Then you have the finance manual, then you have the engineering, repairs and maintenance manual. So as you can see that every single function actually has been very clearly templated. There are specs, design specs, there are, and as he very rightly said, brands, one of the disadvantages of a branded product is that, you know, it is all written in stone. So a lot of it is actually non-compromisable stuff. Then you have the HR manual, and then you have, of course, the technology booklet. Technology is now getting a lot of precedence over the other functions, because I believe very strongly that the future hotels in India, which are going to be gaining a lot of traction, is actually in the economy and budget. The word budget is something that's pretty allergic to me. I'm not very, I would rather term that as a smart hotel. So economy and smart hotels. And smart is like a smartphone. So it's going to be merely 30% technology led. Even the operations, investment, everything will be fully automized. A lot of automation is going to come right at the heart of the house, front of the house, back of the house, and overall marketing, digital marketing, and, you know, a whole lot of things that actually make it a business. Then sales and marketing. I'm running out of time, so I have to obviously run through it. Finance, you can probably read through it. These are the strategic calls that the brand has to take. So there is a lot of procedures and processes and evaluation methods that brands go through before we look at the marriage. It's very important that at this point that the marriage has to be healthy, and then we plan the baby, and that's where it matters really a lot. You know, it's all in the planning of the baby. It has to be a very healthy baby. And that's the only way it can actually grow and, and realize the visions and the goals of the organization. So mandatory systems, requirement franchises systems, reasoning, estimated cost. So this is all the procedures that one goes through. It may not necessarily be for franchising, it could be for management contracts. Fee structure. Then you have different types of fees. I wouldn't dwell much on this, but franchisee format is an interesting format. Maybe just a couple of minutes on this. A flexible franchisee model is what franchising, and that's actually what the Chinese have done it, and that's what perhaps a couple of brands who are already in India are doing it, where you actually have a compromise, because skilled manpower, knowledgeable executives who are actually required for operating the promise of the brand, the product specs, for compliance of a whole lot of procedures and process in the hotel, can only be done by the people whom the brand has selected. So therefore, it's very important that you, as investors or as a single family-owned hotel ownership, take cognizance of the fact that these are very critical, non-compromisable items in any negotiation. You must try and get, see, the hotel success is all about who the general manager of the hotel is. That one single position determines the success or the failure of the hotel. And therefore, that person requires a lot of training, a lot of skills, a lot of evaluation before he is placed in that position. Then the sales executive and the accountant. These are three very important functions. Then franchise format, you can go through the pros and the cons. See, these are the, first, penny wise, pound foolish. Don't look at it from a short term. Hotel business is all in the long term. It takes time before a hotel turns around and become prosperous. A debt-free, say 70% occupancy hotel is a dream. And that actually is like the goose that lays the golden eggs beyond a certain period of time. Value-added services, whole lot of them. And then you have this whole way forward. As you can see how a franchise rollout is done. It has about 6 steps before we get into it. That's it from me. Thank you so much.
Mohan, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to run you through some more commonplace, common-sensible things that you need in order to help you make a decision. Can we go on to the next? So what do you as an owner or a promoter need to look at before you're making that decision on franchising, assuming that's the way you want to go? And what's the right time for it? Tell me what to do and what not to do, and my costs are going to go up. So let me put up this building, and when I finish, I will then see who comes in, and I'm sure there'll be a queue of people outside wanting to run my hotel. It is a possibility, depending on what you build, but perhaps there is merit in taking that decision of who you're going to run with at the concept stage itself. It helps you on the product. It helps you on the efficiency of the product. In most cases, it actually helps you save money. So if the franchisor is part of the concept and development and part of how your hotel is going to go forward, it's probably helpful. And from that context, it's good if you take the decision really earlier rather than later. So there are different stages. One is at the concept stage. 2 is you say, I build the building, I keep to a certain square footage or square meterage in terms of guest rooms, size of bathroom, so-and-so public area, and I'm by and large okay, then I'll decide later. Or the next stage is you say, well, let me finish it all. It's my money, why would I bring in somebody else to tell me what to do, what not to do? I do it to my taste, let me fit out the hotel, complete it, and then bring in the franchisor, bring in a name. So the later you leave it, the more you're curtailing your options and your choices, because some of the bigger brands are fairly fixed on certain standards that they require. And you could do it post-opening, and you could have an option where you've been running with a brand or running with your own brand for some time, and you're now looking at reflagging. You're saying, I'm now going in and changing my brand because I'm not happy with the way things have happened so far, so I'm going to change it altogether. Now, here's some costs and benefits. Owners can develop their own brands. There's nothing in the book that says you can't have your own brand. It's okay. Despite all the modernity and all the technology and all the efficiencies added over 3 generations, Oberoi remains a family brand. You have the Lalit going as Lalit. So there is nothing that stops you from building a brand of your own. The only factor today, in today's context, is you really need that very strong distribution. So if you're doing your own brand, you need to tie up with somebody who has a distribution ability, perhaps without the name. You can choose from indigenous brands that have been developed in India. In the mid-market, the earliest of the players is Choice, the quality people. You have Taj in the mid-segment now. You have Sarovar. You have